And we are back. Another episode of the Grunge Bible Podcast. My name is Ethan Shalloway, joined by Chris Solona. This is episode 182?
182.
We are chugging along. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And Chris, I have one question for you. How are you, brother?
How am I? Busy. I'm busy, but I'm good. That's my answer. How are you?
I am busy and I am good. That is my answer as well.
Excellent.
I mean,
we got a lot, there's some shit going on. There's a lot of different things that I'm juggling right now, as I know you are too.
A lot of coordinating schedules with people that are either non-responsive and different points in different places, and it's very
so tiring.
And I'm the one moving around, that is, and
right.
Yeah, it is a tough thing to really nail down some things. So, but other than that, I mean, things are good. It's cooling down. The weather is changing. The nostalgic season is coming along. I think autumn is that time of year, and I love it. I really do.
I would agree with that. Yeah, man, things are good. I got a couple of shows lined up here tonight. I'm seeing the Front Bottoms for the 6th time in my life, and it is official. Next week, I will be in the crowd watching the great Boom Gasper lead Pearl Jam onto the field of battle at Fenway Park. So obviously, I'm just going for Boom. So I'm hoping to get some wasted reprise so we can get him just hammering at home.
Waiting for Stevie. Yeah, that'll be exciting, man. The Dark Matter tour.
The Dark Matter.
Yeah, things are lining up. I mean, we're going to LA, and it seems like there's a ton of stuff happening obviously in LA all the time, but people are touring, and I feel like I'm around big events when they're happening, and you kind of feel like you need to go. So
yeah, it's hard to decide.
Jam's in town. What are you going to do? You're going.
Yeah, it's hard to decide where to spend your time. But
they're not coming around here that I know.
No, they're probably not. They should play in Birmingham though. Play the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. So I got a concert. It's funny. You're seeing Pearl Jam on Tuesday, and in total different worlds, I'm going to go see Young Gravy perform here.
The duality of man. I love that.
Oh yeah. So I am excited for that. It'll be pretty interesting. The tickets were like $20 before fees.
Well.
So no problem. And then I'm getting on a flight home the day after, kind of do something at home before we head out to LA.
Mm-hmm.
We got tickets to see Goose at the Greek Theater. I've heard a lot of awesome things about that venue. So we're reeling in the years, in the words of the great Steely Dan.
And we're definitely stowing away the time.
Oh yeah. So today's episode is a special episode, as every episode is of the Grunge Bible Podcast. And we are going to take a look into an amazing band / multiple acts that involve Shawn Smith, Brad, Satchel,
solo stuff,
EDC, solo stuff. I mean, random stuff, but really, this is the Seattle sound. This is the interconnectedness of the scene, and this is really, grunge. I mean, this type of stuff. The brotherhood, the brotherhood that is involved in music is almost as important as the region. Is almost important as the music. I mean, the brotherhood. So that's exactly the fellowship. I mean, these guys are, Brad versus Satchel, whose side are you on?
Whose side are you on? That's the thing. And there's nothing more grunge than fellowship, in my opinion. And that's what it's all about. It's about doing stuff with different people, supporting others who are doing things that are similar to what you're doing. And even if they're not similar, in the way that I kind of view this episode that we're about to do, because speaking for myself and maybe for you too, this is kind of, the early steps into the world of Brad, Satchel, Shawn Smith, and so on and so forth, aside from the ones that we all know and, the different ones that have become notable over the years just because of their use in different things and whatnot. So this episode is kind of the beginning of a conversation that I think we're hoping to continue around some of these acts specifically, and maybe around some of the albums that these bands or Shawn himself put out, because it's one of those that in the prep for this episode, the more I listened, because there's a lot there, right? I mean, there's a few different bands, there's the solo stuff, there's the live element to it. The more I listened, I was just left and right uncovering things that I really liked and really enjoyed, and it's exciting. It's exciting to discover these new things, and obviously we're late to the party, but better late than never. And hopefully, as we start this conversation, continue it in subsequent episodes, maybe we can bring some other people into the conversation and start their relationship with this music, because that's what it's about. I mean, that's kind of grunge too, sharing music with people. So and this is the Grunge Bible podcast, so we're really cornering the market on grunge activities right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what we do. And I think when they have episodes like this, and we'll probably reference a few different ones. I mean, this is when I feel the best about what we're doing, because this is the good stuff. This is the deep cuts. This is the connective tissue that puts the whole scene together.
Yeah, and it's fun to dip your toes into uncharted waters, because that was really the genesis of the podcast and the genesis of the page, because we were discovering music. So anytime that we get to kind of discover and talk about those discoveries in real time on the show, I always enjoy these episodes. So looking forward to this one, and we're able to have these discovery episodes because of the support that we receive. Anybody who's purchased merch or would like to purchase merch, we have our link to our shop in the show notes. You can get yourself a crew neck or a beanie as the weather starts to cool off here a little bit, or you can join the Patreon, which is the most direct way to support us. Nobody's really taking a cut of that one as they are with the merch. We have a $2, a $5, and a $10 tier, and the offer that is out to anybody right now is if you join the Patreon after listening to this episode, we will get in contact with you and do an episode about anything that you want. There's a lot going on in the world, in the music world, and in the world in general recently. So any hot topic that you want us to cover, we will do our best. So that's the open offer. But I'd say above all, we want to thank our top tier Patreon supporters who give us $10 a month that we use to make this show happen 182 episodes in. So I'd like to thank the members of the top tier right now. I would like to thank Eddie Vitter, got me through my second divorce, Down the Hole, Flat Out Fucked, D-Boat, Doug Endy, Kara K, Black Hole Sean, Fuck Soup, Apona, Granny Grunge, Gochu John, Jamie Lynn, Jade Mercado, Carlene Salona, King Buzzo, Stole My Hair, Keith White, Millie, Nikki Six, Russell, Pile of Punk, Sherry Matthews, What the Fuck is Up Denny's, and Seattle 4 Fanboy from New Jersey. So thanks everybody for your continued support. Some of these names I've been saying for like over 3 years, which is really unbelievable, and it's really special, and it means a lot to us that I've been able to and that we've been able to thank you for so long, for how many dozens of episodes.
Oh yeah, the list continues to grow, and then it drops, and then it grows, but there are the pillars that stay there forever. Yeah. And well, hopefully forever. How long? However long.
It's similar to
it is.
It's similar to back a couple of years ago when everybody was investing in GameStop. I mean, it's a sure thing. I mean, it's a solid base. You're going to get a return on your investment. So why not? Why not? Right? Yep. We talked about guilt a lot last week. We talked a lot about guilting people, but this week it's just about why not? Have a little fun, dip your toes into the water of support. It's a very grungy thing to do.
Why not you? Why not us? Exactly.
Why am I here?
Who am I? So, all right. Now, as we like to go, we are going to discuss a few things that happened this day. So September 16th is when this episode is out. So this day, September 16th, what happened in the music history world? So we're going to go back to 1925, which is 99 years ago. The great B.B. King was born. And it would be cool if it was next year. So it'd be 100 years of B.B. King.
Yeah.
But, we'll do that next year. But it won't come out on the 16th, so we won't actually. But
maybe we'll do a special edition 100th birthday for B.B. King episode. B.B. King, blues legend, one of the three kings of blues, along with Albert King and Freddie King. B.B. King was... he's got his own technique named after him. He's got his own style, really one of the preeminent bluesmen of the 20th century. And even, towards the end, he collaborated with so many different people up into, names including John Mayer towards the end of his life. So really, really influential. He's one of those guys that when you hear him play guitar, it's him. And I can think of no greater compliment and no greater testament to somebody's skill than being able to say something like that about somebody. It's like when you hear a certain lick, it's a B.B. King lick. It's right out of the B.B. box. And that's, what a guy.
The BB gun. Yeah,
The
I love it.
BB gun, absolutely. We're gonna jump forward several decades now to another very, very esteemed musician. On this day in 1979, the great Flo Rida was born. And before we get into this, if you have any thoughts, I always think it's fascinating to this day. Like, not that Flo Rida comes up often in conversations that I have, but people still to this day are discovering that Flo Rida is just Florida split in two. Some people don't know that.
I was literally about to say, I remember when I found that out.
Yeah.
Found that out in quotes. Slash, like I was just young and I heard Flo Rida, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, it is Florida.
Government name Tremar Lascelle Dillard.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty you know, if you remember, obviously, what was it, like 06, 07, low
man. Yeah, low in 07.
And just an absolute banger. I mean, that was,
dude, the boots with the fur. I mean, come on.
It was massive. I mean, yeah, dude, he had a chokehold on the number one spot for a while. And yeah, dude, I don't know. This is one of those artists that, like, and you know, he was born, you know, in 79. So let's see, 07, that's what, 38 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And
like
or 20, wait,
36 years. Math's hard. 28 years.
28 years. I guess he wasn't as old as I thought. But anyway, happy birthday to Flo Rida. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm not sure what he's doing right now, but that's, you know, I just love it.
I'm not sure. Yeah. And then we'll take one more birthday here, Ethan. I'll pass it over to you. Another very influential music figure here that we've got to wish a happy birthday to.
Yeah. So in 1992, one of the brothers Jonas was born, Nick Jonas. And yeah, dude, I remember the Jonas Brothers. I mean, like I said, he's 2 years older than me, but they were kind of growing up. Were they Disney stars, right? First?
Probably, yeah, I think so.
They were Disney stars, and all of a sudden it was the Jonas Brothers when they were young, and it was like, it was a big deal, man. It was a big deal because boy bands were kind of, you know, falling off, right? And they were kind of the last boy band, and then like the other one, what is it? What's the other boy band?
There's a lot of them. What, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys?
No, the more modern, with Harry Styles.
Oh, One Direction.
One Direction, yeah. Like One Direction came out at that time. I'm not saying they're the last boy bands, but like, you know, those are the kind.
Oh, they'll be back. Don't you worry. The boy
they'll probably be back, but like there hasn't been the boy band. Has there been a group like of brothers? Or I mean, that's the coolest part about their group, obviously.
Yeah, the brothers, and I'll never forget the Jonas Brothers because they hit it big right around the time I was in middle school, and at that time, every single girl that I had a crush on in middle school loved the Jonas Brothers. So in an attempt to woo these crushes that I had when I was 12 or 13, I kept up with the Jonas Brothers. You know, I knew the songs because you got to be able to talk shop. You got to be able to have some common ground with your crushes. And I'll tell you, you know, the middle school dances when You Look Me in the Eyes came on, you know, that's, you know, you find somebody and do the slow dance with, you know, a very, very seminal moment of anybody's childhood that was born in the early to mid 90s, I would say.
Yeah, and it was always the conversation was who's the hottest Jonas brother. You know, it was a hot topic back in the lunchroom table.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I mean, you know, in the girls' sphere. Not the boys weren't talking about it as much.
Hey, you know what? You have
but
to.
if the girls brought it up, we'd have to weigh in at some level.
You got to play ball because you have to show that you're well-rounded. It wasn't just sports and monster trucks. You got to be able to talk about, you know, I heard Love Bug came out. You know, that song's kind of a ripper. And you got to be able to talk shop. So
it's okay, but it's no Flo Rida, you know.
No, it's no Flo Rida. It's no low. Speaking of going,
because that was an absolute powerhouse in the junior high dances back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny going back to that song, and then I Want to Love You by Akon. So I'm going somewhere with this. I was like 10, 11 when these songs came out, and
Akon's a whole other episode.
Episode. Both of those songs very prominently mentioned the club, right? Like the whole club looking at her, and I think I Want to Love You is like I see you winding and grinding like up on the club or something like that. And when I was 10 or 11, like I didn't understand like what this club was they were referring to. So I was like, oh, like why is everybody like at like the club? Because I thought a club was like, hey, like we all have the same interests, so like we're gonna make a club about it, like at school. Sandwich. I was like, why is everybody like at this club right now? I didn't understand it. And soon after, you know, these songs were my education as to what exactly the club was.
Well, and you know, to go a little further on, you know, dissecting the club. let's talk about the club sandwich for a second.
Oh, little
Like,
turkey club.
dude, like that must have been like there must have been a group of guys who were like, you know what, we're gonna name this the club sandwich. Like this is our sandwich, and that's how the original like club sandwich. Like what else? What else could it be other than a bunch of guys being like, this is our national sandwich?
Yeah. Well, that's the same people who coined sandwiches heroes. I mean, how awesome is that? It's like, oh yeah, like I've got a hero. But apparently a club sandwich, also known as a clubhouse sandwich, probably going to country club type stuff, is a sandwich consisting of bread, traditionally toasted, sliced cooked poultry, fried bacon, lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise, often cut into quarters or halves and held together by cocktail sticks.
Right.
So that's, if you're a traditionalist with your club sandwiches, that's going to be.
So it's country club stuff, but like I picture a bunch of guys being like, "This is our national sandwich." You know?
Evidently, the club
Regional.
sandwich has its origins way back in 1889 from the Union Club of the City of New York, which was a private social club operating in Manhattan.
Okay.
And still
So
to this day.
New York gave us the club sandwich.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Imagine like all of these socialites and they're eating sandwiches held together by sticks.
Toothpicks, yeah.
I guess what's high and mighty has changed as the years have gone on. No caviar for them, just a hearty club sandwich. I love that. That's great.
Dude, I mean, sandwiches are,
Sandwiches are great. I just made one yesterday. I forget.
They go in waves. Yeah, they go
Yeah.
in waves. Obviously, 90s, I think, was a big time for the club sandwich.
Yeah.
But,
Just like boy bands, they'll be back.
Yeah, but it's very consistent and like you just can't get past a good sandwich. I mean, they may be like underrated or under the radar, but they are never going away. Like,
yeah. And
sandwich
it goes
is undefeated.
Exactly. I know we've spoken about this man before on the podcast.
I don't care if they want to outlaw bread and gluten. Like the sandwich is not going anywhere.
No, you need a loophole for sandwiches, and take it from the late great Warren Zevon when he was going through his terminal illness towards the end. He was on Letterman for I think his last appearance. He did tons of appearances on Letterman.
Yeah,
David loved his music, and he's like, "Do you have any advice? Did you learn anything, through this journey and knowing that the end is near?" And he's like, "Well, nothing other than the fact that you need to enjoy every sandwich." So, take it from Warren Zevon himself. That's advice that I carry with me to this day.
It's perfect.
It's so perfect.
Good. Yeah. So, we'll talk about club sandwiches and sandwiches more often, I think, in the coming podcast.
I think so. Yeah. We need to make an intentional effort to do that.
We can make a top 10 list. I mean, there's a lot of, and the crazy part is just when you think you've had every sandwich, you go to some spot and they have a different sandwich you've never had before. And you're like, whoa, your mind is blown. You're like, how did you know to put, peanut butter on bacon and with lettuce and tomato?
And it's like, how to like
BLPBB or something.
Right. And then somehow like there's the whole genre of sandwiches where like apples are included and they're great. Sandwiches, like you can make anything work in a sandwich and it's really impressive.
All of a sudden you got a honey ham, Gruyere cheese and apple sandwich, and somehow it works.
Yeah. It's just the ultimate. It's the ultimate chameleon. It just no matter what you throw at it, it's going to work and it's going to fit the environment.
The versatility is unreal.
Yeah, it really is. I think
you can sell a sandwich for $1 or $20.
I'll tell you, Ethan. I feel like we're 1 to 2 minutes more sandwich conversation away from just throwing away the whole Shawn Smith episode and just talking about sandwiches here.
I mean, yeah, this isn't even getting into the Philly cheesesteak, the hoagie, the hero, grinder,
and then the whole philosophical debate of what exactly constitutes a sandwich. I mean, that one's old and tired. Is a hot dog a sandwich and so on and so forth. But
nothing worse than when someone calls a hoagie a sandwich because it's not the same.
It's not just like a grinder. Like it's not. They're not sandwiches. They're all their own. Same thing with heroes. Your PB&J can't be a hero, just like it can't be a club sandwich, obviously, because it's not what the Union Club in Manhattan decided in the 1880s. Let's kick it forward here to the last event this day in music history. And Ethan, you made the this day in music history. I haven't looked at it yet, so I have to read this one pretty much verbatim. On this day in 2014, American singer Ariana Grande was at #1 on the U.S. album chart with My Everything, the singer's second studio album. It made its debut in Australia at the #1 slot in Canada as well, and it peaked in the top 10 for 20 countries worldwide, which is really impressive. And it wouldn't be a Grunge Bible podcast this day of music history without references to these ambiguous charts.
The charts. Yeah,
I
exactly.
love the charts.
The charts and being specifically number one in different areas, but not other areas. It's great. Um, yeah, I mean, I just figured I know you like Ariana, and I mean, who doesn't?
I
I mean,
do.
she do you not?
I don't really know anything about her
Oh, all right. I am mistaken then.
until
Yeah, I
now.
mean, she had the song "One Last Time," which I clicked on the music video because it was, yeah, I just saw it and I watched it. And it was okay. It was kind of cool because it had this one long shot. It was kind of corny at the same time, and
Yeah.
because she was probably pretty young at the time, and whatever.
I mean, it's no Friday by Rebecca Black. I'll tell you that much.
We should have her on.
She's easily found.
That's like an interesting topic to talk about, that song and how it was popular in general and blah, blah,
Chokehold,
blah.
my freshman year of high school. I remember the springtime. So your sophomore year of high school.
I guess Ariana's no Olivia Rodriguez is what you're saying.
No, Olivia Rodrigo, the best.
Yeah,
obviously.
Okay, that pretty much wraps up this day in music. So we'll be back next week with more beautiful topics, and you never know, sandwiches may come up again, but
yeah, you never know.
That takes the cake.
Yeah, you never know what's going to pop up for September 23rd, a week from today. So we'll have to see. And with that, I think it's time to get into the main sandwich offering today, which is a lovely musical sandwich of very talented people and very talented projects, all revolving around the late great Shawn Smith. And I just have to say, before we get into anything, there's a through line. I think, you talk to people that either spent time in Seattle or, made music in Seattle or performed or met Shawn Smith. And they always say that, he rose above a lot of other things that they saw and a lot of other musical acts that they were able to see live or work with or, be on the same bill as. And really one of those transcendent people. And you throw the underrated word around a lot in music and people are like, oh, Alice in Chains is underrated, but I struggle to find the merit in that because obviously, one of the humongous international act at their peak and still, near and dear to many people. But, it's interesting because there's not tons and tons of people know about Shawn Smith or know about his music. And myself included, I'm very much at the early stages. I would say we've spoken about him in the past, but I think a lot of them had to do with maybe a certain album coming out on a certain day or the anniversary of his passing. But I think, as I said earlier, we're kind of at the precipice here where we're going to take a dive into this man and into these projects that we're going to discuss.
Yeah, sometimes we have topics on the podcast where we are doing the research because we need to become a little bit more knowledgeable on it. And usually, or depending on what it is, it sticks and you're like, I actually am going to see this through. And this is definitely one of those times where like, yeah, I've listened to it, but I've never really looked at it. And, underrated is used a lot. And I think he's more maybe appreciated because, the people that know him know how good he is, but like less people say no. So it's one of those things that all of a sudden you start looking into him and hearing about it and seeing where he fits in the fabric of time. And I'm like, oh yeah, this guy was important. This guy, like the stuff that they did, the him being around for as long as he was making music, like that's more important than the one-hit wonders of the world, right? One-hit wonders come in, they make the splash and they leave. But the people that are there and like devote their life and like his body of work and being a part of and involved in the different projects and stuff, really stuck out to me. And of course, like we're going to get into his voice and what made him special because he was very special and unique, something that, is important as a musician. And I find myself like, I see it in my repertoire of for sure in the future because it definitely scratches an itch that the genre, like what I look for in the genre. So it's gonna be quite fun to find the right time to pull up the Shawn Smith song and Satchel or Brad. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the through line to all of these acts, I think, is Shawn Smith's voice, his lyrics, and his piano. And when you put all of those together, I was listening earlier because, a lot of these projects, there's a lot of stylistic variance with what you get on the different Brad albums. Even within one particular album, you get a lot of different sounds. And Satchel too, I mean, you have like pretty rock sounding stuff, and then you have just like singer-songwriter type things where it's, for all intents and purposes, just, Shawn with his piano. And he has that skill where when you're listening to him, he has that ability to stop time a little bit, and no matter whatever you're doing, you just kind of tune everything else out and just listen to what he's doing. Fantastic performer. There's so many great performances of him and of these bands that are available on the internet. Obviously, myself not having had the chance to ever see any of these guys live, with these acts, it's just really, really impressive. I know there's some KEXP, really, really well done, well produced sessions from these guys, and it's just really, really impressive stuff. And there's a through line here, and I think when a lot of people start getting into this, Brad is usually one of the first ones that they find, because when you're doing your research about Pearl Jam, you find out that Stone Gossard was in Brad, and it was a side project that he was involved in. But you've got a bunch of different people from different backgrounds in here. In Brad, in addition to Stone, you've got Reagan Hagar, who was playing in Malfunction with the Wood Brothers back in the 80s. And it just kind of speaks to that fraternal element that always seems to come up whenever we talk about these bands, how a lot of these different guys were involved in different projects, and there's so much overlap where it's like you're playing with these different people and then you move on to play with these other different people, and it's all really beautiful.
Yeah, so basically to set up the timeline, these guys are from Seattle. Shawn Smith from Seattle, and they have all the Bainbridge Island guys where the Wood Brothers were, and they played together growing up. All to say, like, Malfunction, they were really young when they started playing, and then
like teenagers.
And then like Satchel became a thing, which is a 3-man band, as we said, with Shawn, Reagan Hagar on drums, and John Hogue. John Hogue.
Yeah. I believe it's pronounced Hogue. John Hogue.
It's like hoagie, but without the IE, which is great.
The sandwiches are back.
Hogue, dude. John Hoagie. So Satchel would say like an outfit before Brad, but they didn't release an album, and then they got another member to fill out the lineup to create the first album for Brad, which is 93, which was Shame, which I think we could do a whole episode on.
Yeah.
And then, Satchel released an album. And then Satchel released an album, and then they kind of like, there was just like a lot of intermixed things, and I can imagine them all being together. And there's even other smaller projects that, I think Shawn was in a band called Bliss for like a little bit. And, it's like, think about when you're like 20 years old and you're doing things, you're trying to figure if like, okay, is this going to work? Like you play with the people, like, let's call ourselves Satchel. And then like, they go in different ways. Like, all right, let's call ourselves Brad. They actually come up with an album, and then you change, you go back, and it's like, all right, let's actually release it. So that's kind of what it was.
You need like It's Always Sunny board up in front of you with all the different pins and the elastic bands and everything to put it together.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh, wait, like, and then all of a sudden you see like, there was From the North with Shawn's like most recent band with the core members of Malfunction, which was Kevin Wood, Corey Kane, and Reagan Hagar, who Hagar was also a part of Satchel. And Brad, so like, and it's just Malfunction. And then they all were singing with lyrics left by Andrew Wood. So they were using his stuff and playing it. And then like, so it's just like a nice, like they're all working together to like, really, like, I just picture a group, young kids, like they have these dreams when you're young, and it's like I want to go into business with my best friend, which we are, which is great. Yeah. But like, that's everybody talks about going into business with like one of the people. And it's like, when you have a band, it's like, I want to make music with you. And then like, after you kind of move around, do all your stuff, you always come back like, okay, now's our time. Let's do it. Or something like that. I pictured these guys all like being together and jamming. I mean, the sound, like we talk about Shame, which is the first album that came out of, these few groups that we're talking about. And I listened to it, last night all the way through, and man, I loved it. I really, really liked it. And I'm getting obviously a ton of Mother Love Bone, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this and the Seattle sound that we talked about with Scott Crane from Bainbridge Island. There's an episode that we referenced. Like that episode is honestly like, if we were to make that, the sunny, board.
Yeah,
like that's a great spot to start for.
Yeah, if there's a starter pack for grunge and for music that comes from Seattle from this time, that's an episode I think that can really equip everybody well.
And in the beginning, I was just about to say, in the beginning, like when we first got into it, we talked about grunge, but then you talked to Ripu, and it's like, no, it's really the Seattle sound. And now And at first it was kind of daunting to get into like the older stuff and like what Malfunction or Skin Yard and stuff. But
Right.
now it's making much more sense. You know,
It
it's making a
is.
lot, it's coming together. The picture is becoming clearer. That's like when you watch the movie and you're like over halfway through and you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I want to rewatch it and
Hmm.
figure it out even more. That's how this is, man.
Yeah. Something that just occurred to me when you try to work through the chaos of these timelines.
Because I was confused.
Yeah, I'm still confused.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I had a hard time. I was like, I need someone to write this out.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to like color coded. I need an outline, you know, with the bullet points and the A,
Yes.
B, the Roman numerals. But like the chaos of these timelines when you put them all together, really, in my opinion, is a testament to the intent behind these projects, where it's about driven individuals with talent who wanted to make music with people that they love. You know, there's no
100%.
album cycles here. There's no, oh, well, you know, this album came out, so we have to wait, you know, 18 months to get back in, and then we got to promote this one. I mean, it's kind of like blow for blow with all these projects. You know, you have one, and then there's, you know, people are involved with other things that they're passionate about, and then they always come back to these projects, and they get together and put together some really, really great music. And I think that's just a testament, you know, the way that it unfolded is really, as I said, you know, it speaks to why they're doing it and their reasons, you know, for making these projects. And starting, as you said, with Brad's album Shame, which came out in 1993, it's really hard to put a finger on a word that I could use to describe the way that it sounds. I wouldn't know how to say it. I do like the Mother Love Bone comparison here, because Mother Love Bone too, they always talk about Mother Love Bone as kind of being proto grunge and before it, but I don't really get much of the sound that I know as the grunge sound from Mother Love Bone, in the same way that, you know, when you speak of Brad or Satchel or Shawn Smith stuff, like, it's not grunge. It's, as you said, the Seattle sound, as Scott told us in that episode, kind of the Seattle sound.
Exactly
it's just,
what it is.
It's a melting pot of different ideas and genres and approaches. And I think anytime, you know, you lend some of these, you know, obviously there's some riff heavy stuff, guitar heavy stuff, but when you add an element of a piano and you add Shawn Smith, whose voice just plays so well when things are slowed down a little bit and there's a lot of open space, it creates something that I think is not easily defined.
Right. And so this album was their first, and like, you know, they had been playing together for a while before this album came up, and they wouldn't actually call the band's name Shame, but it was taken by, you know, another band featuring Brad Wilson, apparently, which that's the Bare Naked Ladies, correct?
That's Wilson? Brian Wilson. Is that Brian Wilson?
Yeah, no. At least, yeah. Anyway, so they took the name Brad and used Shame as their album name, and
no, Brian Wilson's the Beach Boys guy. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
No, in the Naked Ladies song, they bring up Brian Wilson. Like, that's
okay.
The song. I that's exactly. We don't know what we're talking about.
No,
but basically, that first album, like the song. So a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we did the Mark Lanigan episode, and I remember I was going through Mark Lanigan. Obviously, the Spotify playlist ended, and it went to, you know, a similar artist, and the song Rockstar came up, which is the last song on the first album, Shame. And it has this crazy bass line. And I did think it was Mark at first, because it's a little distorted vocals too. And I thought maybe it's something that he did. And it is, I mean, this is like, you know, young guys making music, and you know, there's no auto tune, or the effects are limited when they're doing all this stuff. You put yourself in that place, and they're experimenting and doing this weird, trippy shit. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is very unique. And this album, like, there are a lot of piano, but as Shawn, you know, moved on in his career, a lot more piano came involved, and the voice really polished off. This beginning was so, like, I was like, oh, dude, these guys are just jamming. And this album was done in 17 days. They got together, and a lot of the recordings were just taken from their jams that they put together. And then that's when I was like, oh, dude, these guys, like, they grew up together. They had, like, the realizations together. They had the moments, like, they had those shared core memories of, like, growing up and, like, dreaming and, like, trying new things. And this album is a fun one to listen to. So it's a little bit more, like, not as polished as the next album. What is it? Interiors.
Yes.
So Yeah, really cool place to start. They got a crazy album cover that reminds me of something the Melvins would have did, you know.
Yeah, totally. And it starts. Buttercup is such a fantastic track.
Buttercup
It's
is
the
beautiful
opening
starting
track.
track.
I think of Buttercup's Screen as well.
Yep.
And Rockstar. I mean, they're just so good at setting a particular vibe, I think, when you're listening to it. And as you said, it does sound kind of experimental. It's out there. And it's just like the play that they have with, different parts are subdued and the vocals come through. And then there's, other musical parts and riffs and whatnot that shine through and take the stage. And it's just really, really well rounded, I think, with everybody on the record having their day and having their time to contribute. The main thing that you're going to pay attention to. And they jump around a lot. And you mentioned their second album, Interiors, which came out in 1997. I absolutely love the opening track, Secret Girl. A lot kind of more rock heavy with a really, really good hook, really, really great riff here at the beginning of this one. And once again, they slow it down a little bit. You've got different tracks like The Day Brings and Some Never Come Home, or, the final song, Those Three Words. There's just a lot of versatility on these albums. And I think that's what I think of when I think of the Brad project. It's, you never really know what you're going to get with these tracks and from album to album, which is really cool when anytime a band can kind of seamlessly move through different sounds.
Mm-hmm. And The Day Brings, that song has Mike McCready on it, and it is a beautiful song. Really, really fun listen. And starts up with piano and like. So what we were talking about is the Mother Love Bone comparison. So we have historically done a few episodes on them, and my biggest, like my favorite songs by them is when Andy is playing piano and singing over top of it. And I was like, man, if they just did a little bit more of this, all of a sudden I find Shawn Smith, and he's doing that. And then I even saw him cover, he was covering Mother Love Bone. And I was
he used to do Chloe Dancer, Crown of Thorns.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, no one's Andy Wood, but no one's Shawn Smith either. I was like, this is really like, he was there with them. And I was like, I get it. I don't know. It made so much sense for him to cover. And then I was like, wow, this is like an extension of Mother Love Bone in a lot of ways for me. And I'm like very happy that, because there's a finite number of, Mother Love Bone stuff that you can get into. Right. And, I don't know, if you feel like you need more of MLB, then this is where you go, because I don't know. It's not the same band, obviously, but the parts and the everything that, the lore behind them is the same. So yeah, a lot of the same players, so you get a lot of the same sounds.
And as you kind of
more piano.
Right. And as you move forward in the lineage of Brad, we've got Interiors, Welcome to Discovery Park. Brad versus Satchel was just, it was a series of kind of unfinished demos that they had polished up and released that. And, then you come to an album, 2010's Best Friends, which I had never listened to before yesterday. And it really knocked my socks off. And it's funny, as time has gone on, I've encountered randomly different songs from these groups and from Shawn, and even with United We Stand, which came out in 2012. It's got one of my favorite songs really to come out of the region on, and it's the closing song, Through the Day, which is really just piano, and it's really, really wordy, and it communicates its message so well. It's such a great song that just kind of makes you contemplate different things, and Shawn's voice was unbelievable. He could do those, kind of rockier songs that I think you heard a little bit earlier in Brad's catalog. And then also with something like this, which is really subdued and emotional, he could do anything. He really, really could. And something that I love, that's a part of Brad's lore at this point is, we lost Shawn in 2019. And a few years after that, the surviving members of the group got together and they put out a final Brad album just last year, actually, and it's called In the Moment That You're Born. And they had used, different vocals that Shawn had recorded before he died, but they hadn't necessarily finished. And that came out last summer, actually. And similarly, same thing. Just like the Best Friends album, I hadn't really listened to it until yesterday, and it's got me really, really excited to take a deeper dive into some of this stuff and develop my relationship with these songs. Because as I said at the beginning, that's really what this is. This episode's kind of us thinking out loud about stuff that we're just listening to for the first time.
Yeah, we just talked about, Mark Lanigan's Bubblegum 20, all the unreleased songs that came out. Like you said earlier, the From the North, which was like Andy Wood vocals from before. And then, they have this album for Shawn Smith where it's 10 songs that are previously recorded from him. And it's like, it is um, for the fans. And this is one of the things, like if I was, more keen to Shawn Smith and everything, 7 years ago, this album would have been really special to get last year. It still is special, but you know what I'm saying? Like if I would have, I mean, that is so cool that they have the material and they can do something like that, because that's a beautiful way to kind of close the book and be, proud of all the work done, time spent.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of that, to speak nothing of the Satchel project as well, which we mentioned had Sean Reagan Hagar once again, and John Hogue playing on it as well. And they released 3 albums, EDC in 1993, and then a couple of years later they released The Family, and then you have a really, really long gap, and then Heartache and Honey came out in 2010. And similarly, I remember one time I was looking for something to listen to, and I just threw on EDC, which was Satchel's first album. And once again, it was the first time I listened to it, and I immediately knew that it was a special thing, and it was a special group. Right from the jump with Mr. Brown, they kind of sample. I don't even know what it's from, but it's like we're using aliases on this job, and from this point forward, like I don't want to hear anybody refer to yourselves by your Christian names. And then it goes into this really, really great song. And right from the jump here, you get kind of that. Ethan, I know you would love this song if you haven't listened to it yet, but Trouble Come Down, which is just kind of piano. It's got this really echoey drum track in the back. And it's just, I think in my opinion, it's Shawn at his best. And it's certainly one of my favorite tracks from Satchel.
Yeah. When he strips down, it is one of the best things that you're going to find in music. And everybody knows like how beautiful the piano is as an instrument. And when you pair it with the vocals and you have the right lyrics and stuff, it is a tearjerker. So the song that I really will ever probably do that. I believe someone passed away, in high school, or somebody, it was a friend wasn't necessarily a friend of mine, but he was in the circle, and I remember someone posting a song with Wrapped in My Memory, or a post with Wrapped in My Memory about it. And like, oh my gosh. I mean, that talk about like, piano and having this powerful chorus to bring it in. And it was actually in The Sopranos. Did you catch that? Were you
Yes.
knowledgeable of Shawn Smith when that came on at
Yeah,
the
so
long-term parking episode?
Yep. So and if you're a Sopranos fan, you know that episode. And it was probably one of the biggest episodes in the history of The Sopranos. And they actually used 2 Shawn Smith songs in that episode earlier on, before the end. They close with Wrapped in My Memory, but they also used Leaving California earlier in the song. And it's really one of the most pivotal episodes in the history of The Sopranos. I'm not in the business of giving anything away, because I really think it's a show that everybody should watch if you haven't. But yeah, I had known of that song for a while before I actually got to it and watched The Sopranos, beginning to end. And it was perfect. I heard it and I immediately knew what it was. And it was just the perfect song for the moment in the show. And I'm really grateful. The Sopranos had an absolutely unbelievable soundtrack. David Chase, the creator, a huge music guy. And obviously Steve Van Zandt, who was in Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. He's in the E Street Band. There was just so much thought put into what they used for different components of the soundtrack. And I love the fact that Shawn Smith's included in it. And it did a lot, I think, at the time, being one of the most popular television shows at the time, and still, of all time now. That episode, Long-Term Parking, is definitely a lot of people's first exposure, and maybe, hopefully a path into this Shawn Smith, Satchel, Brad world that we've been discussing today. But yeah, that song, that song's unbelievable. The studio version's wild, but even better, the solo shows that Shawn did, where it's just him and the piano, is just it's so poignant and it's so emotional, and it's really a perfect song, I think, for those points in your life when you're thinking about the past or maybe somebody who's left. And I know that song got a lot of play when Shawn Smith passed away.
Yeah. I mean, the lyrics, I wrote them down. It's like, and you're wrapped in my memory like chains, for I say that the flowers will always be there in my heart, like an old fashioned movie, and I never forget your part. I never forget your part. And then obviously the ending, it's like, and I'm wrapped in your memory like chains. This is, yeah, you're only a memory now.
Yep.
And that chokes me up every time. You're only a memory now. The way he goes up in his vocals, and oh my gosh, it is a special, special song that if people use that at the right time, like, it's over for me.
and that song, I don't remember if it's on the studio version or not, but live he would often kind of extend the outro a little bit, and he interplay "You're only a memory now," and then he'd say, "And I can't wait until we see each other again." And it's so, like, I just, like, thinking about that, I just got a little bit of chills right now, because he makes it so, the pain in that delivery is so, it comes across so clearly, and I think it's unfortunately a lot of us end up being able to identify with that type of pain, and it's one of those things, if you're feeling a certain way and you listen to music that describes that way that you're feeling, it can help, and I think that's a song that has certainly helped a lot of people over the years, and it's going to continue to do so.
We're gonna make a pact right now, Chris, that when we're in Flagstaff in LA, we're gonna listen to a lot of Shawn Smith.
We gotta just go front to back on some of these records.
I mean, I always think about, like, where do I want to listen to this album? Like, because, you have to find the right time, but man, around a fire, this is the perfect, like, songwriter that you want to be listening to when you're sitting outside and having a conversation over top of it, of, like, with your friends, which people that care about. And I'm excited for that. So we're definitely going to be doing that. You'd be pleasantly surprised, Chris. I made a pact that I'm finishing up Succession TV show, which is very good. And when I'm done, I am going to do the Sopranos front to back. I haven't done it. I've never done the front to back, so I'm excited. I am.
Yeah, I might have to hop in and watch along with you.
Yeah, let's do it. I think Quinn's going to join as well.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I absolutely love that show. And I mean, that show, in addition to being, it's hilarious. Like, there's points in it that are very, very funny, but, there's weighty moments. It's got a little bit of everything in the same way that a lot of these, these albums do. So it's just really great that they kind of intersected at a certain point. Before we stray away a little bit, I do want to shout out one song off of Satchel's second album, called "The Family," and the song is the opening track, and it's called "Isn't That Right?" And I've posted a few times, but I think maybe in 96 or 97, they ended up on the Lollapalooza circuit, and there's a really, really great video of them playing this song live. And you could just tell. I mean, Shawn Smith is the type of guy, he's sitting down at the piano playing, and he's got the microphone in front of him, obviously, and he's somebody that could command an environment with the way he was singing, and the confidence that he had in his ability to convey whatever he was trying to convey really, really shines through in a way that's really unique. And you can tell that he's having fun performing too. And it's a really, really simple song, I would say. There's no guitar part or anything or drum part that's particularly challenging, I don't think, to play, but that's the ability that great artists have, is they can take something plain and make it beautiful. And he was really, really able to do that, as were, everybody in these bands.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. The idea that, his voice is his instrument, and then the piano highlights, there's accents from the rest of the band, but, like, when you say he controls the crowd, like, that's the best compliment you can have, because it's not easy to do, and your voice needs to be powerful yet gentle, and that's exactly what he was doing. He was performing, and then the instruments were just kind of highlighting, like, his voice and the lyrics behind it, and it brings out the feelings better than any guitar solo you're gonna get.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we're doing this episode because this is really just kind of our rough at the jump reactions from getting into this. And,
Yeah.
in the same way that, you just said you're going to start watching The Sopranos, and I think I'm going to watch along with you. If to anybody listening out there, if you've not listened to this music, I think you guys should join us in this discovery because, we're at the beginning of it. So I think it'd be really fun to do it together as a group. We start kind of picking through the catalogs here. And as we learn more about these albums and more about these songs and the people who played on them and the time and space that they come from, it's going to be fun to talk about that as a group, I think.
Welcome to Discovery Park. That's what we're doing right now. This
Absolutely.
Discovery Park.
Yeah, man. It's going to be great.
I love it. Yeah, I think that's a perfect spot to I think the next step was, we're going to kind of maybe go into some of these albums a little bit deeper and have some conversations. That'll be a lot of fun. But that is your overview. Go check it out. Check out the timelines and kind of bounce around and see where you end up, really.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's, it's not up to anybody except yourself where you end up and how, all of these things affect you. I mean, there's certainly songs on here that, will affect everybody in different ways, and it might not affect us as much as they affect you, but it's exciting, to go through that process. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
Awesome. So last thing we do is Song of the Week, and I think it's pretty clear I'm going to pick one of these songs, and I'm probably going to do Wrapped in My Memory because that song is, and there's some really great songs to choose, like we talked about, but I'm going to start there.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to pick.
For everything I said.
Yeah, I'm picking a Satchel song from EDC. I'm going to pick Trouble Come Down. That's a great place to start as well. So I think kind of like both from the same vein of what Shawn Smith did and what he was capable of, but really, really great songs. And I think a perfect place to begin.
Last thing I'll say is, Shawn at the end of his elder years, what an absolute hoss with the beard and the black hats and the
hat.
Talk about the hat, man, dude. Talk about a presence. Oh, man. Yeah. That beard is something special,
Mm-hmm. It was super cool, and he had a presence online. There's a YouTube guitar teacher named Ryan Lent who does tons and tons of Pearl Jam lessons and Seattle band lessons, and he did a lesson for Buttercup, and there's no definitive source necessarily on how to play these, and he'll listen along and he'll try to figure it out exactly, and he did a lesson for Buttercup, and Shawn Smith actually commented on it and gave a lot of really good background as to how it was recorded, maybe different parts that Ryan didn't get exactly right, but in the true essence to what everybody says about him, everyone who interacted with him, he was such a gentleman. He was so sweet, and he offered a lot to conversations, into moments, even when he didn't have to. And we interviewed a couple of years ago Amanda from Bexley, and she played different shows with Shawn Smith was on the bill on, and had nothing but great things to say about him as just being such a sweetheart, and one of those really good people that just, it makes you feel good to know that they're out there, and that they're willing to offer pieces of themselves even when they don't have to.
Yeah, I wish that I could see him right now. You know what I mean? It's like, dang. But that's how this world works sometimes. So no problem.
It's the ever-present dilemma and feeling that we have, I think, with a lot of this music that we discover. So, which is why, you got to get out and see people when you can. You got to keep going to shows, keep rolling that rock. If you need to get a little less sleep one night because you come back late from a nearby city to go see somebody, you got to do it because you just never know. And as the years go on, things can become even more significant than they were at the moment that you saw them and you made that choice. And you're always happy that you made a choice to go to a show, I think.
Pretty much, yeah. Awesome. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Grunge Bible Podcast. Please go listen to your Shawn Smith, Brad, Satchel, even dip into the Malfunction and the old Mother Love Bone stuff, see where the intersections lie. And it's exciting. We'll be listening together.
Yeah, we sure will, man. We're heading west here. The days are drawing near that we're going to be out there, and we're going to do our best to keep the Grunge Bible podcast train rolling. In the meantime, we may have a reissue in the mix here over the next few weeks as we navigate this travel and maybe not having the time to record. But needless to say, every Monday there is going to be a Grunge Bible podcast release in your inbox. So we'll keep the conversation going as we know you all will on your end, and we're looking forward to chatting with you once again here next week.
All right, everybody. Have a great week.
Rock and roll.